Hi there. I'm Jeff Smith, State Senator from the 31st Senate District in West Central Wisconsin. And today we want to explore the complications or challenges of voting through our clerk's eyes. And we have three very capable clerks from the 31st Senate District that are here today to talk about what might be either myth or reality, what's going to happen in November elections. So let's start. I'm going to introduce Janet Loomis, who's Eau Claire County Clerk. Janet, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Jeff, for having me on. Like Jeff said, Janet Loomis. I've been a county clerk for 20 years in Eau Claire County. Eau Claire County is about 100,000 people. We're about the 18th largest in Wisconsin. So we're one of the higher volume voters. The city of Eau Claire certainly is our highest, and so we have a lot of media here too, so we get a lot of questions during election time. So thank you, Jeff, for having me on.
And Roxann Halverson, how are you today?
Good, good. I have been the Buffalo County Clerk for 16 years and a town of Mondovi clerk for about a year and a half. We're very rural area, so it was good to be invited to present with you today on the challenges of elections from a rural standpoint.
Yeah. And Melissa Kono, how are you today?
Great, thanks for having me. My name is Melissa Kono. I am a town clerk with the town of Burnside in Trempealeau County. And then in my full-time job, I am an associate professor with UW-Madison Extension. And one of the things I do is election research, and I train election workers in this part of the state. And I also train voter registration groups.
Yeah, I think we have the right people with us today. So because we have that mix in my district, the city of Eau Claire is the big city, and which is closing in on 70,000 population, I believe, Janet. And then, but outside of the city of Eau Claire, there just aren't very large population centers in my Senate district, and we're really talking rural, and that's what so we want to face those challenges. And even Janet, you have to deal with rural townships around Eau Claire and the rest of Eau Claire County, right?
Correct. It's just like I'm sure all counties have that mix.
Yeah.
But there are correct. There are some that just do not have that big city or the big population. They're really rural, the whole county.
Yeah, that's right. Include the town I live in is about, I think the population is about 1,600. So let's start with what can we say to voters to make them feel that their votes are going to be safe and secure? You want to start out, Melissa?
Sure, and I think it really does speak to the rural nature. You know, if you look at how elections are administered in Wisconsin, they really are administered at a local level. You know, Jeff, you mentioned that your township is very small. Mine is much smaller than that. It's just over 500 people. I have under 300 registered voters. And so, I mean, I'm responsible for administering elections for my neighbors, and my election workers are people from my municipality. So we know voters know us. I feel like our voting system is very transparent. You know, the machine that we use, there's a public test that needs to be done. That's noticed in the paper. Anyone can come and watch that. People can come and watch the at the end of election night. They can reach out and ask questions. If I have a question for a voter, I can reach out to that voter. I mean, I think that in a way, we're very fortunate in rural areas when it comes to election administration, that we know the people that are involved, you know, the real people, and that they're people that we trust.
Yeah, you know, and so Roxann, you come from a perspective of both the town and the centralized county place. I mean, that's the one thing people I don't think really understand is how that operates. But like Melissa says, it's very local, elections are. So can you elaborate on that?
I actually love that I'm from a smaller area and that we know our voters. In the news lately has been a lot of talk about dead people and their pets voting absentee. And being from the small area, I go through my poll list for my township, and also on the county level through the MyVote system, I'm able to go through and match voters that have passed away and remove them from the poll list. My clerks will let me know, hey, so-and-so passed away, can we make sure they get removed? So I'm very confident in the security of our absentee process and making sure that only valid voters vote. Along with our machines, I'm confident that they are secure, they're tested, like Melissa said, before each election, and it's an open public process that anybody can come and watch. And I invite them to do so because it gives them that extra sense of security when they watch it and make sure that everything's adding up the way it should be.
Well, Janet, I know that you've been doing this a long time, and I can say that because I've known you a long time in Eau Claire. So what sort of relationship do you have with all of the clerks in the county of Eau Claire, and then the expectations of them getting those votes to you on election night?
Well, this may not just exactly cover your question, but I do want to say that in 2006, when the state, had the statewide voter database, that has grown as far as what can come out of it. That's where MyVote comes out of, and people can see their voting history. That's when the poll lists become what I would call very clean, because it does bump up against the DMV to make sure that's a real person. The state does bump it up against Social Security as far as, people that have died. And so that then they can send that information back to the clerk to take that off the list. So by having that statewide voter database, our database is very clean and our poll lists are very clean. If I lived in Eau Claire, was a registered voter, moved to Madison, when I register in Madison, it takes me away from Eau Claire. So this one database and one poll list just helps people, or should give people confidence that I can't be voting all over the state, because we've got a very tight system when it comes to poll books. You asked the relationship between the clerks. No one votes at the county level. No one comes in and votes with us. They don't register with us. They register. It's run by the municipal clerks, but yet there's very much that the county clerk does. In our case, we actually do the programming for the election equipment. Not every county does their own programming, but they are the go-to person that works with the company to get the programming done. They're providing the names on the ballots. They're working with the municipal clerks, the schools, to get all those names and get them in right order and spelled correctly. We just work very close together. We also are a provider in MyVote, some of the municipalities, actually putting it into the system, the registrations, their activity. So every county will have a different relationship with their municipal clerks, but we all have a relationship with them and are very much in the back scene of the whole election.
Well, so I'm going to move to what's really been on the headlines and a lot of people are talking about, and that is absentee voting. And Roxann, do you want to start out and explain to us how and where a voter would vote absentee?
A voter can request their absentee ballot on the website called MyVote. It's super easy to go in, plug in your information, and also upload a copy of your photo ID, which is required if you're not indefinitely confined. Then an email instantly goes to that municipal clerk to let them know that a request has been made and to send out a ballot. It also allows the voter to track the ballot when it was sent out and if it was received back to the clerk so that it's ready to be counted on election day. If a person wants to vote in person absentee, like early voting, they would contact their municipal clerk and set up a time to meet with them to vote in person. I'm sure in bigger cities like Eau Claire that have actual office hours, you just go in during those office hours, but with a small town clerk, you call them and set up that appointment. So clerks are very willing to work with that voter to make sure that they are able to vote and that their vote counts.
So Melissa, do you want to explain maybe the difference between absentee voting and in-person voting? And if there is really a difference anymore, I think it's really blurred.
Yeah, it is. It has been really blurred. I hear people use the term early voting all the time, and what that really is in-person absentee voting. So people can request an absentee ballot, either be mailed to them, or as Roxann said, meet with their clerk, and they would vote absentee at that time. And then that ballot is held onto by the clerk, and it's not counted until election night with all the other ballots. So it's kept in an envelope that's marked with that voter's name. There are some an extra process when it comes to absentee voting, in that people have to have a witness signature and address, which is maybe challenging for people who are, you know, living alone or confined. And then, you know, what we saw in April is that there were a lot of people who requested an absentee ballot but didn't have anyone that could safely witness for them, because we're supposed to be socially distancing. So they had to call somebody to come over and watch them, you know, vote through the window and then slide it through. I mean, it was made a little more complicated than I think it was in the past. So I do want people to know that when they vote absentee, you know, there are some time that needs to be accounted for getting the ballot through the mail, and then getting the witness signature, making sure that's on there. Otherwise, you know, the clerk will have to contact that voter if they're able to be able to get that witness signature. I see that a lot sometimes, that witness signatures and addresses are missing on absentee ballots.
Yeah, I know on our road, like in the spring election, and then again in August, my wife and I were witnessing for neighbors, and neighbors were witnessing for each other down the road. We're actually distance apart, but you stand down in the yard and you watch them, you witness them voting. But so Melissa, like you mentioned before we started recording, that you work from your home, and I think that is not unusual. It's the same case in my town, and probably Melissa as well. And I think that complicates things too for in-person voting. But the difference seems to be in-person voting and absentee is that in-person voting, you come, you vote just like you would at a polling place, and you leave your ballot. It all happens right there. Whereas absentee gets mailed to you after you've requested it, and then you got to go through that process and send it back in a timely fashion. Is that right?
Well, I mean, the process for in-person absentee voting and mail voting is essentially the same, in that you receive a paper ballot. It's in an envelope that's marked with your name and address and the witness signature. So that process would be the same whether that was mailed to you or you go into the clerk's office, and then that ballot is held until the end of until election day, and it's counted with the other ballots. I mean, it's put in the ballot box once it's processed on election day.
Yeah. Okay, Janet, do you want to describe where would someone go to know what's on their ballot, and then after they get into the absentee voter, what is the time frame which they better get that ballot in?
What's on your ballot? It's too early now, of course, for November, but when all the races are set, MyVote is a perfect website for it. It tells you who your elected officials are. It says what's on your ballot. It's where you can ask for an absentee ballot. If you did ask for an absentee ballot, you can watch or see that the clerk got it, see when she sent it out. When it comes back, you can look on that site too. So MyVote is a spot for everyone should know about, and then that's where they can see what's on their ballot. It's too early yet, but about the middle of September would be when they can start looking at that.
Okay, and Roxann, could you maybe walk through I think the real concern right now from all the news out there and all the confusion out there right now is when you need to get your ballot in, because I know the U.S. Postal Service is coming under fire for being slow. A lot of ballots didn't get counted, in fact, in the spring because they came in too late. You want to talk about that?
The guidelines from the state are that you have to request your absentee ballot by mail. The last day to do that is the Thursday before the election. In my opinion, that's too late. Just from the mail system, by the time you request it, the clerk gets it out and gets it back by that Tuesday, just a few days after. It's pretty much impossible. So the earlier the better. Ballots won't be ready till like the middle of September, end of September. I don't have the exact date they'll be ready. Maybe Janet or Melissa can chime in on that, but it won't be for a while. But the earlier they request, the better. That way they have time to think about how they want to mark their ballot and to allow the postal system to get it back to the clerks in time.
So that they could actually request it now, right? And then it would just be mailed to them once they're ready.
Yes, they could. They could, go on My Vote, request it. They can request it by mail if they want. They could do that now. And then as soon as the clerk gets those ballots, they will get them sent right out to that voter.
All right. That's, I think
17th is the
voters.
date.
And
Okay,
Jeff,
go
I
ahead,
just,
Janet.
oh, go ahead.
Sorry, September 17th is the date the clerks need to mail to absentee voters for anyone they have a request on file.
Okay.
And the Wisconsin Elections Commission is sending an absentee application to all registered voters. They plan to send that out on September 1st. So voters who are registered should be getting a paper application in the mail from the Wisconsin Elections Commission. It's important that it comes from the Elections Commission. I know that there are some of the political parties, even some third parties that send out absentee applications, and when I've had those come back, they haven't always been correct. But the MyVote system is really a great way to request an absentee ballot because, as Roxanne said, you can put in your photo ID. It's right there. It's secure. It comes directly to the clerk, so it kind of minimizes that back and forth that might otherwise happen when there's just not always a lot of time to mail things, to get the ballots out and get them back, especially if it doesn't go out in that first batch. That's why it's great to request it now, because once the clerks get those ballots, we turn them around right away, all those that are in the system. And so that leaves plenty of time for mailing. And I just want to point out, in the MyVote system also, people can register to vote in the MyVote system and update their address. Janet alluded to this earlier, that it pings off of the DMV. So if somebody has their driver's license from Wisconsin, they can register, and then they can turn right around and request an absentee ballot once they're registered on MyVote.
I think it's really important that you mentioned that be sure your absentee ballot request comes from the Elections Commission, because you're right, there has been some interesting mailings that have gone out and passed from different groups that I think find suspicious. The other part that this reminds me of is it lawful, I have been asked this question, for one person to go down the road and collect those ballots and bring them in for everybody else? That's called harvesting ballots, and that has been very controversial in other parts of the country. Do you know if people have done that or are possibly doing that in Wisconsin?
That one I don't know. I have not heard of that one. I know that, if somebody's hospitalized, you can have a family member come and pick it up and take it to the hospitalized person and bring it back. But I have not heard of any, like harvesting of them, picking them up for multiple people and bringing in.
Okay. Yeah.
There are pretty strict rules in Wisconsin regarding who can register voters, and because those changes came kind of right before the 2016 presidential election, and they really narrowed who could be a special registration deputy and who could register voters. That usually applies like in nursing homes, but the clerks, we register voters, but technically, people are supposed to be registering on their own behalf because they are certifying when they register to vote. I'm a U.S. citizen, I'm 18 years of age or older, I'm legally eligible to vote. I do get a lot of questions or concerns that people who are voting who shouldn't be voting. But really, that's on the voter, under threat of committing a felony that they, are who they say they are. So I don't think that that is happening as much as it's made out to be.
Yeah, I agree with you, Melissa. But I guess I want to put that out there just to be sure to keep people on alert that you don't want someone else handling your ballot, and you can't trust that it'll end up being counted that way. So
The Elections Commission has put into place a tracking system on MyVote, which is really going to be great, I think, in that people can track their absentee ballot through the MyVote system and see my clerk has sent it out, and then my clerk received it. And I really encourage people to be tracking that information prior to the election to know that their absentee ballot was received, either through mail issues or whatever. I mean, that's a safe process to know that their ballot has gotten to where it needs to be.
that's really good advice. So what do people need to, when they're going to vote, what do they need to bring in? And I think already somebody mentioned, even when you apply for your absentee ballot, you need a voter ID, right? And how does that work?
If they're registering for the first time, they should bring in either a Wisconsin driver's license or a ID of some sort that is state issued. If it doesn't have their correct address on it, they can bring a utility bill that does show their correct address, a bank statement. There's numerous different things they can use for their proof of residency. They can register to vote on election day, or they can go through MyVote to register, or they can work with their town clerk or municipal clerk to register beforehand. On election day, they're going to want to bring a photo ID because photo ID is required, and there are numerous different types of photo ID. There is a state issued ID, there's your driver's license, a college ID, just different things. So work with their municipal clerk if they're unsure of which ID they can use and bring in on election day.
So Janet, election night doesn't necessarily mean those results are official. And what makes them official, and how do they become official? When does that happen?
A school will make their results official. A city will, if they have a race, will make theirs official. The county makes the official results for county level and above for that county. So what happens is everyone has a board of canvass. And in my case, at the county level, it's a Republican, a Democrat, and the county clerk. After the election, all the supplies are brought into us, inspector statements, the tapes from the machines that the poll workers have signed, write in tally sheets. And we convene, it's an open meeting once we have all the information. And we go through all those tapes and we compare ward for ward, candidate for candidate, what votes they received from that municipality. Once all those things have been met, I should say too, also the top race, the first thing we do on the top race for each municipality, we add up all the votes, compare them to the votes that were cast, and make sure there wasn't a big drop off. If there was 100 voters, you probably have 98 cast in that top race. That's a reasonable amount. If there's only 50, then there's a problem someplace, and you have to kind of look into that. But so that's the first thing you do, is make sure that the votes cast in that top race don't have a big drop off to what the candidates actually received. Then you go through ward by ward, municipality by municipality, check them, make sure the totals are correct, and then they become official at the county level. The state, we send our official results to the state for the state races, and I believe they go through that same process, taking all counties together for that assembly district or senate district and making sure that all those numbers match before they make them official.
To help further that security or how people can feel about their vote, Melissa, can you tell us what kind of training the clerks and election workers do receive to ensure that we have safe elections?
Mm-hmm. So election workers have about 3 hours of training. The clerks, we go through much more training than that. We have to take a initial kind of certification course, and then we have to take training every year. The Wisconsin Elections Commission comes out with relevant training all the time to just update us on processes, because Jeff, sometimes you and your friends change rules at the last time on us and at the last minute, and we gotta switch things up. But you know, election workers are trained on how to administer the the election process. There's lots of videos and other materials that the Elections Commission puts out too.
Well, so I appreciate that comment. I'm glad you said that too, because it is important. I hear from clerks all the time, I wish you guys would talk to us before you change the rules on us again.
Mhm.
And I just want you to know that I take that to heart. That means something. And 10 years ago, when I was chair of elections and campaign reform, I did do that. And I was speaking to clerks in my office for anything we were considering doing. So hopefully we'll do better down the road. One last thing, Roxann, how can someone become a poll worker? And really what I want to ask, do you think there is going to be a shortage of poll workers this year?
Some municipalities are seeing, because of the COVID pandemic, a reduction in the number of poll workers, and have had to go out and recruit people in their municipality to become poll workers. Both political parties are able to submit lists to each municipality, and then the municipality would choose people from that list. In our county, that doesn't usually happen, and so our municipal clerks go out and find people that are willing to serve. The clerks will then train those election workers so that they know the ins and outs on election day. But if people want to work the polls, please reach out to your municipal clerks and work on getting that training, because there is a need for them. Our poll workers are getting older. The average age is in the 70s, and so getting some younger people that would be interested would be an awesome boost to the election process. So yeah, reach out to your municipal clerk.
Yeah, I've done it, and it is at least at the town level, it is really kind of a fun social day. You see all your neighbors and get to have those conversations. You might not see them the rest of the year. So, it can be, especially since I know that my town is no different than any other town. Clerks are taking extra precautions and making sure people are safe, and during this really strange time we're in. So I want to say thank you for being here. I think this is very helpful for voters if they hopefully watch this and listen to what you are telling us in regards to the safety of their vote. So again, I want to thank you all for joining me today, and continue to stay safe and have a good election season.
Thank you.
Thank you.